Oh, yeah, I don't have time for that, but I'm kind of curious what it is, though. We're live, by the way, just in case you don't want to talk about it. No, I'm seriously. Do you mind telling me what Big Brother is, though?
It's a CBS reality show. They choose like 16 people to live in a house for this pretty much the summer, and they get eliminated every week. A person, sometimes two, and until there's a winner. And because you're in that high pressure situation, little things can conflate into big things, and there's a lot of underhanded stuff, and it's hard to be a good person by the end of it, but that sort of pressure cooker of an experience, something that really interests me every year.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, everybody ready?
Yeah, I think we're good.
I'm excited. It's going to be fun. I'll probably end up trying to keep it quick and fast. So, and I don't know if anyone else does, but I kind of want to catch that Mexico-Haiti game. That sounds kind of fun. Looks kind of
yes.
Is there any chance that Haiti loses by less than 3 goals?
Stranger things have happened, and
they have. You never know.
Yes, I mean, potential team like Haiti might just be able to pull something out. I know I'm actually pulling for them because they have gems on their team.
Oh, is he a Fresno guy?
Yeah. He plays defense. He's like a middle back.
Okay,
and
we're gonna bring
he's doing
a
pretty decent job at it.
Dude, that's great.
Can at least call the massive support that half the teams in our semifinal this year come from Caribbean nations.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah,
we'll bring that up. We'll let Lefty. We'll let you kind of start it up, and we'll kind of expand from there. All right, boys. I'm going to start it up in just a second. Everyone good?
We're set.
Yes, sir.
I'm probably not the best person to talk about Gold Cup, FYI, but
no,
I think catching a little bit of Haiti and of course being AO, the U.S. stuff.
Yeah, I made the mistake of trying to go too in depth last week. I'm not going to make that mistake again. So here we go. Welcome everyone to the USL show. This is Phil here. We are brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network. We are sponsored by Roughneck Scarves and Golden Goal Press. Welcome everyone to the show. We got a fun one tonight. We're halfway through the season, and so we're going to talk about things that are going on right now, and we're going to do some power rankings, just a little bit of power rankings to kind of lead you into something else coming up over the weekend that we'll talk about in just a bit. But first, we will start with introductions. We have 2 special guests today. Let's start with them, actually. Ben Wright. Ben, you're finally on the show. This hasn't happened yet, has it?
No, I guess I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh, that feels special. I think that's the first time anyone said that to me before, and I like it. Speedway Soccer follows all things Nashville SC. Ben, you guys have been pretty good so far. What's going on in your life? I know what's going on in your life. I hijacked your vacation. Are you there, Ben? Did I lose you?
I'm here.
I'm so sorry. I hijacked your vacation, and where are you guys at, and what are you guys up to? I kind of want to hear it.
We are in Holden Beach, North Carolina, and I'm sitting in the basement of our vacation house, which is incredibly humid. So my microphone there's condensation all over my microphone. But
hilarious.
So if I get electrocuted, and that's probably why you aren't hearing from me anymore. But no, it's been a fun week. Yeah.
What do you do in that little vacation spot? What kind of things are you guys up to?
Just hang out at the beach.
Play
beach soccer, swimming,
drink,
hang out in the pool, that kind of stuff. Yeah, everything.
Perfect. Our other guest for the night is from Foxtrot Podcast. It is Lefty Brown. We're going to call him Lefty Brown. Sometimes you can call him Chris. Lefty, what's going on, man?
But don't call me the Space Cowboy. I am doing good. We have had a good weekend in terms of soccer. All my favorite teams won, so I'm in a good place.
All your favorite teams. Expand on that.
U.S. women's, U.S. men's barely pulled one out, and the Foxes beat El Paso this past weekend, which was a big surprise to most of the people on Foxtrot Pod. But yeah, so feeling pretty good. And
Yeah, I was listening to your show. That's not the only, weird result in the recent past and distant past even, but we'll talk about that in a minute. First, let's introduce Pony is here. He's the one wanting to talk about power rankings a lot right now. Pony, how's it going?
Pretty good. I figure I spend all this time making spreadsheets about USL, so why not show them off from time to time?
Yeah, I mean, I expect no less from you. So this is perfect. It's why we have you here. I love it. Speaking of that kind of thing, Ryan, I think he's typing right now, actually, while we talk. Ryan, how's it going, man?
It's going all right. Just going through all the summer stuff. Saw Spider-Man Far From Home earlier today, which I enjoyed, but no spoilers, of course.
I've been trying to catch up on Spider-Man. I finally watched Homecoming the other day, and it was really good. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm one of those hacks when it comes to the Avengers and all the comic book movies, so I'm just kind of catching up. But you guys, Ryan, you're pretty in depth on that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I try to be. Of the past 9 MCU movies I've seen have been on opening day or opening night, and that included 2 I've seen outside this country. So
in Scotland, you saw some?
I saw Black Panther and Infinity War there.
Dude, very cool. I literally just finished Infinity War, like right before this podcast.
I still haven't seen Endgame.
Yeah, I haven't either, obviously. But anyway, we could go off on that, but instead, let's talk about soccer. I didn't pop this up. Let's come back to that. Ryan, do you mind getting that letter up so you can kind of read it when we get to that?
Yeah.
We've got something big coming today, and so I don't want to mess that up. We'll be prepared. But first, let's start with a little bit of news. Loudoun United Stadium to be called Segra Field. Is it Segra or Segra?
Segra, I believe.
Okay, I thought you might answer me because you're probably the closest person in proximity to there, other than Ben, maybe right at this moment. But I heard some people getting upset about them using turf, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't mind that. Ryan, you want to fill us in on some of the other details here?
Yeah, but I mean, the Segra Field deal will be a 10-year deal for 5,000 seat stadium. It didn't say how much it was, but if it's for 10 years, I'd imagine it's a huge investment for a 2-team. The field will officially open on August 9th against the Independence, which Loudoun will host, and the complex will also house DC United's training facilities, which are opening in 2020. So this is like a massive investment for a DC team who's just now getting their 2-team off the ground, who had previously had partnered with the Kickers in the past. So this is big to see coming out of the East, and a team that seems like they would want to stay at a USL championship level, maybe one that would try and emulate the New York Red Bulls system.
Yeah, this is an interesting move because in the beginning of the season, we were like, well, Loudoun is very obviously not taking anything seriously. They barely had a roster at the beginning of the season. I guess they knew where they were going to play, but the logo was a little underwhelming. Ben, you're in the East. Is this something you followed? Are you a little surprised by this?
No, I'm not super surprised, and I actually think Loudoun are probably a bit better than people give them credit for. I wouldn't be surprised to see them sneaking into the playoffs. So yeah, I'm not sure I completely agree with the assessment that they're not really taking things seriously.
Yeah, that's kind of me like backtracking, because I was definitely in with the crowd saying that they're not taking this seriously. Why are they even going for championship if this is the way they're going to operate? But these are very, very championship style moves. They're not League One type moves. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of clear that up, at least talking about maybe what narratives were there at the beginning of the season compared to now. But speaking of people that have been underwhelming and have maybe made a bit of a scramble, we're going to talk a little bit about Hartford Athletic scrambling to open Dillon Stadium by the July 13th deadline. I guess construction crews are working till 1 a.m. Ryan, we've got a little more to talk about here.
Yeah, so they've, per this article, they've been working until 1 a.m. to finish the stadium. Currently, Athletic have been playing at UConn's football stadium and being more successful in the stadium than UConn football itself. The project has been funded both privately and publicly, The article linked in our show notes goes into a bit more detail on how that's broken up. But a big thing about this delay is that there have been budget cuts to the project, which has dropped the capacity originally from 6,000 down to 5,500, and in turn also reduced the number of concessions, bathrooms, and parking spots, which has really just caused a massive amount of delay on the project.
Interesting. And a lot of that, I've been in the construction world before. I imagine some of that is either budget cuts. It could also be something as simple as commercial laws and rules and what you have to do, or if something went wrong, sometimes it's easier to cut it down than to redo it from scratch. So you never know what's going on there. I will defend them just a little bit on that. But getting it done, I guess. Do you think they'll make the deadline, Ryan? Anyone? It sounds like it's going to be tough. But yeah, we'll move on from there. It's Jameson Olav was named the interim coach of the Real Monarchs. Martin Vasquez, he had to leave early on Monday as actually what happened? Do we know?
The press release didn't say, it just said that he left the job on Monday and Olav, an assistant coach, had stepped into the helm and the rest of the technical staff would remain.
That's really disappointing to me. Does anyone else want to talk about this? I guess basically I wanted to say that I loved that he was up there because he was an academy coach. They moved him up, and a lot of kids were getting chances, and he knew them really well. I imagine a lot of people who listen to this show probably have also heard of Richie Ledesma, who is no slouch. And Martin was one of the ones that kind of identified him early. I think he did an interview on the Scuffed podcast. If you want to hear him talk and hear about his quality, I think he at least is a good identifier of talent, not to mention, the other guys on that team. So it may not just be him, but I enjoyed his thoughts on that show. Monarchs currently ranked 12th in the West, 6 wins, 6 losses, 3 draws. Do we think it's because of the record? Do you think it's that easy?
I think it might play a part because for the last few years, the Monarchs have started out really hot every year, then kind of faded late. This year, they're not starting hot, and I think that's been a concern because that's the way they make the big playoff, not the playoff run, but the playoff seed run is their first 2/3 of the season, and it just hasn't happened this year. I don't think it's the only reason, but I could see if the idea is to part with the coach eventually and the season starting poorly or at least not up to snuff, I could see it being a reason just to say we're going to call it as it is.
Now, refresh my memory. This is not the same coach that last year had a domestic abuse problem. Is that right?
Yeah, that was Mark Briggs, who is currently out. Although I did see that the Real Monarchs specific supporters group did publish a statement saying that they would have liked to have seen Briggs given the job back.
Interesting. And I don't know if that was ever finalized in saying that it was him. I just know he kind of, the way it was phrased last year, if I'm not mistaken, was he's leaving basically for this to be figured out. It wasn't admitting guilt or anything like that. So if they want Briggs back and he was exonerated of some sort, in some sort of way, that's not necessarily bad. He was good to that team. Pony, you would know better than everyone else, I think.
I haven't heard how it got resolved either way, but if it has been resolved and he's been cleared, I think it could be a good move to bring him back because he ran the team very well.
Yeah, and that's what I meant. You would know better than anyone else because you kind of follow him. You're a big fan. That he was a good coach of that team.
And I'll be honest, as a podcast that sort of like concentrates on the West, I had forgotten about the Monarchs. I was just telling my my fellow podcasters on the show this week. It was like, it's weird. I looked on their schedule and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. The Monarchs, they used to give us a hard time last season. And for some reason, their latest woes, I can understand parting ways with their coach because with the West so compacted in points, if they can turn things around now, they can make those playoff spots if they work very hard and the rest of us help them out a little bit.
Yeah, right. That's well said because we feel like that at times. 6 wins, 6 losses again, 3 draws. That's not something you can't recover from. I think you're very
That's right.
Make a good point. And I do believe I think we talked about this last week. Isn't the West much closer in points than the East?
Very much. I mean, right now, as a comparison, like SAC has 6 losses.
Okay.
So the distance can be met pretty easy, especially if teams are well known for their draws. Maybe Fresno can return to their drawing ways. That benefits a team like the Monarchs if they can pull out some W's.
Yeah, they've got potential, and they've always been well coached, and they're good at spotting talent, like I said. So yeah, definitely within grasp of the playoffs if they get it going here. The next one, it hurts a little bit. We didn't mean for this to happen. Harry pointed this out. Recently, we had Ben Goshorn on, Soccer Goose on, to talk about Charlotte's woes. This was before the firing of McInnes. And, we also had, Mark from representing the Colorado Springs Switchbacks. He would want me to say it that way. He comes from Last Word on Sports in Colorado Springs. We had both of those guys on to talk about their coaches. The teams were failing a little bit, having trouble, struggling is what I should say. And both of those coaches got fired in the last couple weeks. And so I hope for sure that we played no part in that. But I think the reason we had them on was because bad things were happening, right? Right, Ryan? You want to go on about that a little more?
Yeah, I mean, the Switchbacks are currently 17th in the Western Conference at the moment, 4 wins, 11 losses, 2 draws, a 15-31 goal ratio, 14 points. They're currently 8 points out of a playoff spot and 4 points off the bottom. They've also lost their last 3 matches by a combined score of 10-1. And Trish has been with the club since its inception in 2015. He had guided the Switchbacks to 2 consecutive third-place finishes in 2015 and 16, but it seems that the rest of the conference has caught up. And they can just outspin and outmuscle. I made the analogy that they're the more modern-day Wilmington Hammerheads, just a small market team, makes do with what they can on a tight budget, but struggles to compete in most games except for the odd result somewhere in the season.
Yeah. And to give you some highlights of that episode, some things that Mark said is one of the biggest ones. You mentioned a tight budget there, Ryan. One of the biggest ways they wanted to solve that was we all hailed them for finally teaming up with the Colorado Rapids, since they're right down the road, and instead of teaming up with Charlotte, as the Rapids have been doing in the past, which we all know is ridiculous, and we've all made fun of that in the past. Well, they finally did that, but Colorado Springs has not been happy with the players they've been getting. We all know the Rapids have been struggling most of the season so far, and so that has been trickling down to Colorado Springs. That plan did not work. And Mark was talking to us about how terrible that's been, and a lot of it has been because they haven't been happy with the players they've been getting, maybe not living up to the agreement that was made before. And we talked about whether Tritschu should be fired. Mark thought mostly no, that this isn't necessarily – the struggles aren't necessarily a reflection of the coach himself. Any other thoughts from anyone else, Lefty? I know your team has seen them this year, I think.
It's not something I like to remember. But it was one of those one of our 2 losses so far this season, and again, I chalk this up to this is where we are in the season where the rubber hits the road, and you got to make those changes to try to stay competitive. I think the Switchbacks are a little bit too much out of it at the moment. But man, if they can turn things around, they could definitely be a spoiler for people trying to stay in the hunt.
Yeah, they're the kind of team that I could definitely see them focusing on defending and just becoming a team that's hard to beat, which has kind of been their MO over the years. But that's something you can do on almost any budget. Not to say you're going to get a million wins out of it, but you can make a stand midway through the season for sure. They can be a tough team to play, and Three Honest Lads made a lot of conversation about playing at altitude, and so there's something to it for sure on the pro level, especially. Speaking of you, Lefty, let's stick with you. Let's talk a little bit about Fresno. That's it for the news today for the most part. But since you're on the show tonight, we're going to start bringing guys on that can kind of talk about their clubs and just kind of feature a club or two every single week and help us out with the rest of the show, obviously. So, again, thank you, Lefty. Thank you, Ben, for coming on the show. But, Lefty, tell us a little bit about Fresno this year, what it's looked like, just kind of get us up to date somewhat quickly.
Okay, I'll do what I can. But this is our, as you know, second year in operations. But Fresno this year, I keep telling them like we are the best kept secret in the West, and the secret got a little bit out there when we were one of two teams in the USL that was undefeated until I believe it was Sacramento came to town, and this year it feels like there's something special. We have our woes, our attendance seems to be a little bit down. We still don't know where we'll be playing when we go to a soccer specific stadium. There's a whole bunch of like front office stuff going on. But as far as what happens on the pitch, as far as the coaching staff goes, as far as the players playing, there's something really special. And I've said it before without any hyperbole. I believe that this is a team that could will definitely make the playoffs. But I believe this is a team that could win the West, even when you have such a powerhouse of like say Phoenix just putting on clinics week to week sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something there about Fresno. Like our back line is doing an amazing job this year. Our midfielders are really coming around and doing some good stuff. We have a lot of players that right now are starting to come into their own, and players that will be rejoining us. We actually have a problem right now where we're all wondering like what will happen when a player like James Jaffard, who's playing on the Haiti national team, when he returns to Fresno. What will happen when another defensive player, Alex Cooper, is healthy enough to start playing for the team? How many players? Where do we move players that are having a very, very good season, and then players who are new to us this season, like Cutis, that all of a sudden is having a very explosive year. It seems like this is the year he's finally coming to his own. And so now we have this weird dichotomy where we have a homegrown player that is really much loved by the city in Christian Chaney, who it feels like he has to play to be on the roster. Like he has to fight his way back onto the roster because Cutis Lawal and Chavez are starting to really be a power couple of strikers up there. So it's in terms of performance on the field and getting results, it feels like we're starting to figure those things out. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, a couple things there. I was listening to your show, and you're kind of alluding to somewhat of an embarrassment of riches, just because things are clicking right now. That's not necessarily going to last all year, but things are clicking when Juan Pablo Caffa is coming on at the half instead of starting. That was my favorite part of your show today. So tell us about that.
And I can't remember if we had CJ Cochran, our keeper, on the show, and I can't remember if I asked him during the show or prior to when we started recording. But I don't know if Caffa is just at that point in his career where he may be retiring, or or if there's some sort of injury that they're trying to be careful of. Or if there's just other players on that pitch in midfielder that Coach Smith really wants to see more of. And so this past weekend when we played El Paso, Caffa came out in the second half and he played very well, with the exception of that one really bad PK. But ordinarily, the guy is a gift to Fresno. Like, I'm surprised he's stuck around for another season after experiencing our heat and whatnot. The guy can play in any team in the USL easily, but he wants to be here in Fresno. He feels that there's something special here. And so, I'm not quite sure, like, why not play Caffa? Is it looking, I hate to be like coaching. I hate to try to be coaching from the stands, but I just haven't figured out why. To use a biblical analogy, why are you burying your talent in the ground? Get them out in the field. And so when they went up Portland, I can understand that's turf, and who really wants to play on turf. But the dude's having a good season, and yeah, go ahead.
I think you guys made this point, and this is where I was leaning, that if guys are clicking and things are going well in the attack, and you can get by without playing him a full 90, at his age, maybe he's not aging that well, but I don't know how his body's feeling. But at that age, why not take the precaution and have him as fresh as possible for the playoffs, where it really matters, where a lot of good teams have fallen out. I don't know if that's something you guys talked about in depth, but
yeah, one thing we did discuss is, since we have a pretty good, healthy roster right now, with some exceptions, like Moses is out with injury, Cooper is still recuperating. Dad jokes. But so we have a lot of good players that we can swap in and out, depending, like maybe the player's just not having a good night, or maybe the yellow card accumulation is something to be aware of. Who knows. But to be able to have that talent, seeing Christian Chaney, a couple of matches ago, waiting to come on the field. He didn't ultimately get a chance to come back in the field, but waiting in the wings to come in. To see, I think it was described as like, wouldn't you be a little scared seeing Kaffa come in the second half, and then all of a sudden, you have a free kick that he's going to take?
Exactly. And as guys get tired, they foul a little more. I think it's good. I think good for them. And if it works out, why not roll with it? The other thing I wanted to bring up today, because the Gold Cup is happening right now, or if we get done soon enough, we can catch the game in about 30 minutes. Haiti versus Mexico. And that's a pretty cool game. And in that game, you mentioned Jafar. Is it Jafar coming back from the Gold Cup because he's playing with Haiti right now?
Yeah, he's there in the he's a middle defensive player, middle back, I guess, and is doing a good job. In fact, originally he was a sub in the first match, but now he's in that starting 11. So he's doing something. He's impressing people, and we're excited to see an upset. As much as locally Fresno, a lot of people pull for Mexico, obviously, but there's a part of me that really wants to see Haiti come through with an upset, because while Gems is Haiti is his nation, he's to us is a hometown person. He's one of our players. So of course you want those teams, and a lot of us USL fanatics can say this, because there's a lot of USL players from many countries that have played in the Gold Cup this season, this year.
Exactly. And it's cool that Nations League, I think we mentioned this last week, is bringing up teams like Haiti and who do we just play? Curacao.
Don't remind me.
I know. Yeah. Look, hey, we haven't been kicked out. So
True.
That's a good start. Not yet, at least. So,
but doesn't it just fire you up to see us take on Jamaica next?
Well, hey, we just lost to them in a friendly, so maybe harder than we think. But
it's going to be.
USL fans should be really proud of a team like Jamaica that is full of USL players doing well against national team players from multiple countries.
And it also speaks to the quality of play in the USL. So I still believe that not soon, but in the next 10 years, USL Championship might have something that rivals MLS in terms of quality on the pitch. And we keep bringing players from the from Cuba, from Haiti, from Jamaica into the USL. It's going to lift the quality of play throughout the league.
Completely agree. Any other thoughts on the Gold Cup before we go on? I'm going to take that as a no and move on straight to Ben Wright. We've kept you a little quiet today. I apologize for that, but I want to hear all about Nashville. This team has been doing really well, except for a recent game. You guys have been on a pretty good roll lately.
Yeah, so they were, I guess, 7 matches unbeaten before they lost to North Carolina 1-0, which, I mean, I think we've seen over the course of the season, North Carolina is a pretty tough team to play against, especially at home. But yeah, I think the narrative with Nashville's kind of flipped this season. Last season, it was all about being really good at home and really good defensively. Whereas this season, they've been really good on the road, and they're the second highest scoring team in the East. But they've had troubles defensively. They've conceded some pretty sloppy goals. And then it feels weird to say that a second highest scoring team in the East has had problems finishing, but they have had, especially at home, they've had plenty of chances where they've been just on top, dominating the game for 10, 15-minute stretches, creating chances, and just haven't finished. And so Gary Smith, their head coach, has talked a lot about just taking advantage of those moments. And it feels like every time I ask him that, he says they have to take advantage of the moments, and it comes back to haunt them later. So yeah.
Didn't they have the most the worst conversion rate or the most chances not finished last year, something like that?
I don't know if it was the worst, but it was definitely towards the bottom. I think it was like 12%. I think maybe 1 or 2 teams had worse.
I've been wanting to talk to you about exactly those woes, though, Ben, because it's interesting to hear you say those sort of things, because that's where my mind has been with St. Louis FC, where if people, a lot of teams deal with this, and we talked about Pittsburgh doing this, but if they're the team that can't sit back and counter, then it's a lot harder to win a game. And they've also had the same problem where they're still creating chances, which you feel like is harder than finishing. I guess it's not necessarily, but you know, are you happy that the chances are there? Do you feel better about that, or would you like it the other way around? I don't know. I don't really know how to feel on that.
No, I think I'd definitely take this season over last season. I mean, last season they created a decent amount of chances. I think they were right around middle of the pack in terms of chance creation, and then their finishing was just abysmal. I mean, there's really no other way to put it, and that's even after going and spending on a guy like Brandon Allen, who just didn't pan out like they hoped he would.
Oh man, yeah, that's hey. By the way, I tweeted this out. That's 2 mid-season changes for that fella in a row, 2 years in a row, right? Yeah,
and he was making a decent amount of money at Tampa Bay. So
man,
yeah, a lot going on with him. But I mean, this season, Nashville obviously bought Cameron Lancaster, or they signed him a free transfer for Cameron Lancaster in the offseason. They also got Daniel Rios. And I mean, Lancaster has played about 25% of available minutes for Nashville, and he still has 5 goals. He's converting about 25% of his shots, and Rios is converting 27% of his. So I think we've just seen the difference that a couple quality finishers can make in the team, as well as just a lot of the same guys who played last year just look more comfortable in the system. So I think we're seeing a team that was decent last year just turn into I'd say a top of the table side this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay's been such a good defending team, and then they can back it up with their offense. But Indy 11's been on such a tear. At the beginning of the year, a lot of the people were looking at the rosters of Indy 11 and Nashville SC and just saying those two have got to be the top. Is Indy 11 kind of who you have your eye on right now?
I think before the season, I would have definitely said Indy 11, and I don't think anybody expected Tampa Bay to turn things around like they did. They kind of went under the radar, and a lot of signings that went under the radar. So I think Tampa Bay is for sure the benchmark right now. But I don't think Nashville has the pieces to be up there with a team like Tampa Bay or Indy. They haven't quite put it together, especially at home. But I think there's definitely potential, and I mean, there's still a lot of the season left to play.
Yep. Yeah, completely agree. That leads us right into what we all came here for. At least that's why Pony shows up. I think he seriously does the entire season of the USL show so he can just talk about rankings at the beginning, middle, and end. But, I'm not sure. Pony, how do we want to do this today? It looks like maybe we're going to do top 4 of each conference first.
Yeah, we're just going to do top 4 today of each conference based off what we have multiple methods of ranking here. That's basically going to be the teams that are going to host the, I guess, first round proper of the USL Cup. Once all the playing games have been decided, these would be the 4 teams that each of us have, who will be the ones we think host 1, 2, 3, and 4 out in East and in West.
Well, it looks like we have a lot of agreement, but first, let's just, you know what? Let's just kind of, actually, since we do all agree, am I reading this right? We all agree on the top 3 of the West and the East?
Not necessarily the top 3. Those are just 3 teams we have all featured in
okay.
each of our rankings.
Good. Then let's go person by person. Pony, I want to start with you. And if you want to talk about why you ranked them that way, I think we should go all the way into it. Let's start with the East. Name off your East, if you will.
Okay, my East teams, the 1 and 2 actually switched places over the weekend, given results. But right now I have Tampa Bay as the number 1 team, and Indy as the second team, very, very close behind them, as in if one of them draws for next game, I could easily just swap right back if Tampa Bay can't secure a win. Then it's almost a multiple game jump down to New York hanging out in 3rd, and I actually have North Carolina in 4th, which still stuns me, since every time I watch them, I just think they're okay but not great team, but they keep showing up really high in my rankings, and I kind of need to, I think they're the one team I really need to sit down and watch a few games for, because I just don't think they're this good, but they prove me wrong every single week.
Anything behind that you think why you don't think they're that good? I guess you said you got to watch them to make sure, huh?
Yeah, I don't watch them as much as some other teams, but just on paper and even with some of their stats, it looks more like a team who I think is going to be 5 or 6, maybe 7, but it also could be some other teams who I think are good, just aren't performing as well as I think they should be performing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, Nashville, I think, should be better than North Carolina is at the end of the season.
Yeah. To me, I mean, Ben just talked about North Carolina, and St. Louis just faced them and drew them. They're just such a tough team, and I think it is hard to quantify what it is. I think they're just kind of doing the simple things well. Ben, what do you think about that?
No, I agree. I think for the most part, they don't make a lot of sloppy mistakes, especially defensively.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it too, I have them playing the 12th the 12th hardest schedule, so far this season. So I think as the strength of schedule kind of evens out towards the back end of the season, I think we could potentially see them regress to where we kind of expected them to be.
Interesting. You know what? I think let's just stick with the East and put you on hold there, Ben. We're going to come right back to that. Lefty, I think I'd like you to name off your top East. You did preface this show saying you aren't as familiar with the East, and yes. Ben said he's not as familiar with the West. So everyone take this with a grain of salt, but here we go.
Yeah, so obviously Tampa Bay, because they've had is continuing to have a really good season. That is one of the few teams that if I get a chance to watch on ESPN Plus, I'll catch, as opposed to my second Indy 11, who are also having a very good season, but I can barely watch them when they play at home for obvious reasons that have been memed many times. I put North Carolina on there. I've watched them play a couple times this season, and I echo the feeling like this. It feels like it's a team that's going to lose, but they end up winning. They end up getting those results again in matches that I wouldn't expect, and so I put them as my third. And then this last one, I'll be honest, I'm more of the I'll put them into a wild card, I suppose, because not only do they have a prospect from my the college I went to, and he's a local boy from Fresno, but they have one of the prospects that Fresno FC should have jumped on, but didn't. They also, the Riverhounds have the man, the myth, the legend. You got your Lily Ball, so I have an affinity to seeing Riverhounds do well.
Hey, that's well founded. They have won their last 3 and a draw before that. 3 honest legs. They responded to me last time I tried, and I'm going to ask them. in depth and see if they answer me here. They made a drop on their podcast saying something like he's actually focusing on attack. I don't know if that was like a strong statement, but those guys have access to coaches, and they might have heard that from him or something. That might be something legit. I don't know.
I mean, they've scored 10 in their last 3, so
I mean, that's ridiculous. Bubbly doesn't do that. So, it could be a change of tactics, a change of how he views soccer. I mean, this is huge.
It's Lily Ball. I guess this be 3.0.
I suppose so, in a way. Yeah. I mean, he has more money with the Riverhounds now, right? We all talked about that being 2.0, and then maybe he's going to decide to start attacking like crazy. So.
And to be fair to the Riverhounds, with only 2 defeats on the season, those 2 defeats have come against Tampa Bay and Indy 11, who we all are pretty much in consensus are the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's big. That's big. Ben, let's move on to your Eastern rankings. This is your specialty. You put out power rankings every week. And I really enjoy looking at your line graph that you have going. It's a good one to check out. So follow Ben Wright on Twitter as well as Soccer Speed or Speedway Soccer. But you actually type it in Soccer Speedway, if I'm not mistaken. We talked about that before the show. But yeah, give us your list in the East and kind of tell us how you go about your business in that way.
yeah. I mean, so I guess I'll take the latter part first. So basically, I just plug in points per game, goal difference, and then strength of schedule. So I think that especially helps me out in the West where I don't actually get to watch games. So I'm just able to plug in the numbers. In the East, though, I think Tampa Bay they have one loss all season, which I think is just kind of mind blowing. 17 games in, so that one loss. The fact that they've only lost one is keeping them pretty clearly at the top in my rankings. Indy 11 haven't played quite as many games, but I think we've seen kind of a recent upswing from them, and kind of they've played ground out some ugly results, but I think we're kind of seeing them to start to live up to the potential that we all thought they had at the beginning of the season. I have New York Red Bulls at number 3, and they're kind of all over the place when it comes to goals scored and goals conceded. I feel like they have the potential to score 5 in a game, and they could concede 3 or 4. But for now, I think they're firmly in 3. And then we talked about North Carolina earlier, but yeah, I think they've had maybe an easier schedule in the first half of the season, but they've definitely taken advantage of that. And I think they've surprised a lot of teams. I definitely didn't expect them to be this high up the table halfway through the season.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, are any of those things, I wanted to finish up with you in the East, are any of those things kind of what you take into account when you're kind of doing your calculations, or how do you do yours?
Yeah, with ELO ratings, it determines like the strength of each team, but one caveat being that it's like really heavily focused on just the goal margin a team would produce in each match. So for my Eastern Conference rankings, it's Indy 11 and then Tampa Bay in second. So they, like Pony had said, those teams go back and forth. I have NCFC in third, and then I've also put Nashville in fourth as just kind of a one contrarian opinion. Here they're currently a 5th in the table in the East. But one thing that we haven't mentioned tonight on the show, just talking about North Carolina FC, that I think has really benefited them is Dave Sarakin as the manager this season. Say what you will about what he was as the national team interim caretaker, whatever you want to call that time, but he's done a solid job with the team this season to steady the ship and just grind out those results that they crucially need to get. And like Ben had mentioned earlier about North Carolina getting that 1-0 result against Nashville, it wasn't those prettiest of games, but they grind out the result that got them the 3 points.
And just to chime in here, they're doing a lot of that without Lomas, who's been I think he's still their top scorer this season, and he's been easily their most consistent attacker over the past couple of years. And I kind of thought when he went down for the year that we'd see a little bit of a drop off, but they've kept that same level going. So they're very impressive.
Next man up.
Well, yeah, exactly. That was a huge surprise to me too, because I couldn't figure out. I forgot the name of the guy that replaced him, but he's usually a winger. Yeah, and I was like, man, that winger keeps cutting inside. And then I was like, later they mentioned that he was filling in for Lomas, and I was like, oh yeah, Lomas isn't out there. That's their striker this week, because I think that guy is normally playing on the edge. So yeah, dude, Lomas has been so solid in the beginning of the season, and yeah, I agree with you, Ben. That's a really good shout, saying that they're still hanging on with Lomas out. That's a huge deal and shouldn't be overlooked. But yeah, Ryan, I enjoyed your thoughts as far as your rankings. Oh, wait, let's read off Harry's Eastern rankings and Mark Murray from League One Fun. His Eastern rankings, Harry's are in the East. He wants Indy on top, TBR next, Tampa Bay Rowdies, North Carolina after that, and then the New York Red Bulls. I asked for 5, and he threw Pittsburgh in after that. Mark's are, he only gave West, so we'll stick with that. We're all pretty close, right? Ryan, you were saying that we all had Tampa Bay Rowdies, Indy, and North Carolina in our top 4 in the East, every single person. So I think that's pretty easy to agree on, yeah?
Yeah, and then in the West, we all have Phoenix, Fresno, and Reno in our top 4. In the in the West, and we only differ on where to put Portland and Sacramento.
Man, but it is so close in the West, and I think that is displayed there where I'm like, any one of those guys could drop out of the top 4 pretty easily, except maybe not Phoenix, right?
Phoenix is all by themselves.
Yeah.
Well, until they start to stack up some injuries, and the summer seasons, especially in Phoenix, it's real easy to lose control of your conditioning. So I imagine that could be a concern, but especially when it seems like it's all about Asante right now.
Right now, well, I mean, the last forever. Dude's been amazing. So
yeah,
I know. I guess he had a rough start, but we've been through that. We overdid it on Phoenix having a rough start, didn't we? Because boy, have they taken off like crazy.
Well, and it sort of speaks to like how close it is. Like this power rankings for the West, it seems like every week, it's going to be a different dance. Because just a couple of weeks ago, everyone was talking about New Mexico United, being in that top 4. Recently, until they went on the road, El Paso was a part of that conversation. But here we are in week 17, and other than Phoenix, we're starting to, definitely being in, we're starting to see a different dance card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was saying, looking at Phoenix, they're 3 games away from breaking the USL win streak record. Right now. They have
$4 beer nights.
Yeah, they have at RGV, home to Austin, at Tulsa. They won all 3, and they steal that record from Cincinnati 1 year after they broke it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds very doable too, doesn't it?
It's a coin flip. I mean, each of those 3 games is maybe like 80% win, but do that 3 times in a row, it's going to be difficult.
Yep.
I mean, so just for context, in the Eastern Conference, I have 1 point between North Carolina in 4th and Tampa Bay in 1st. In the West, I have over 5 points between Phoenix and the number 2 team. So, I mean, I think even if we see them kind of regress a little bit, I think they still have a pretty good cushion. I think I would be shocked if they drop out of 1st at this point.
Yeah, I think it's 50-50 Phoenix wins West, if not even better for them. It'll
right.
be happening to the players.
But stranger things have happened during the playoffs.
It's true.
The soccer gods are a mysterious bunch.
No, for sure. I think it would be. I do not see them dropping out of a home playoff spot.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what we're talking about now, is who can play at home, just like Pony said when we got into this. But Ryan, you were mentioning that Phoenix is on pace to be the best team in USL in USL history. Let's do this snake draft style. Why don't you list off your Western top 4?
So I put down Phoenix just for a little bit more in depth. They have currently an 1196 ELO rating. And just for comparison's sake, my current best team of all time in USL history since 2011 was the 2016 New York Red Bulls 2, who finished the regular season with a 1202 ELO rating. Granted, they only played 30 matches then rather than the 34 we know, and finished the entire season with a 1221 ELO rating. So it's very possible that Phoenix is already dominating think, in my opinion, the greatest team of all time, and they haven't even reached 2/3 of the season being complete. But also, one caveat again I say is that Phoenix has just dominated all the teams that they've played. I mean, they've had 5-0 results over Tulsa, a 4-2 result over Monarchs. They get all these multi-goal games that just really pile up and benefit them. But to close out the rest of my top four, I have Fresno in second, Reno in third, and Timbers 2 in fourth.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that. I don't know how many people, only a couple have Timbers in there. Are they still overlooked? I did not expect them to stay up so high for so long. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's only myself and Ben who have Portland in our top four, while Pony and Chris have Sacramento, but I'll, of course, let them speak on their sections.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, read off yours, but tell me a little bit about Portland while you read yours off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same as Ryan. I have Phoenix, Fresno, Reno, and Portland. I think I agree. I think a lot of us overlooked Portland, especially at the beginning of the year. But I mean, they've just been able to get consistent results, especially at home. I know they haven't had as easy as many home games as other teams, but I mean, still they have 4 losses on the season. They've only lost twice at home, and they don't have they only have a +7 goal difference. But I think we've seen them consistently be able to pull off results even in close games.
Yeah, that's interesting. Any other thoughts about some of your other teams in the West? One thing, before you say that, I do want to mention, you mentioned in the East that you have 1 point in between. And the cool thing about having Ben on and Pony on and Ryan on is they all have totally different rating systems. And I'm looking at everyone's rating numbers. And so when Ben says 1 point, his lowest Eastern team is 9.4 and his highest Eastern team is 10.4. Okay, just to kind of give you a perspective of his ranking system. And in the West, he has Portland 2 at 7.5, and that 5-point gap is 13.5 to Phoenix, where Phoenix is just taking off.
I also have Phoenix. I also have Phoenix with the toughest schedule on the West so far, which is, I mean, that strength of schedule for them is definitely kicking up their ranking up. But I mean, yeah, I could talk about Phoenix for a long time. I've been really impressed with them.
No kidding. Let's move on though. Sorry to cut you off there, but let's get through this a little bit faster. Lefty, what are your top 4 in the West? This is your specialty, right?
Yes. Phoenix, obviously, they're doing one heck of a job. Then my own team, Fresno, I placed second, and followed up by Reno, and then finally I put in Sacramento just because Timbers definitely making a big argument for inclusion, but when I view them, I sort of view them as like a New Mexico United, where good start, but they start to. I feel like they're going to get a little bit wobbly.
Yeah, and speaking of wobbly, I just, again, not to kind of overdo it, and I'm actually going to ask you if I'm overdoing it. With Reno and Fresno, both those teams have been known to kind of lose to teams that perhaps they shouldn't. And so I guess I wanted to see, am I overdoing it there, or is that something that you do worry about? Okay.
We're trying to invent a word for the last 10 minutes of a game, that anxiety we feel as Fox's supporters, because it is a big thing where we play the last 80 minutes of the game, and that last final 10 minutes anything can happen. And so yeah, it's just we lost to Colorado Springs, and we drew with Tacoma. Both of those were results that were not expected, but we're also the same team that has not lost in our franchise history to Phoenix. And so we're able to look at this past weekend. We beat El Paso, which arguably has the best defense in the West, and we figured them out, and we beat them 3-0. Now we are a team well known for our drawing, and that could also that doomed us last season, and that may also be our same anchor around our legs again this season. But I feel that there's something different there.
Yeah. Right on. Let's read off before we finish with Pony. Let's read off Harry's rankings in the West are Phoenix, Fresno. He's got Portland third, El Paso, and then Reno. And Mark Murray has exactly the same thing. Crazy. Putting Portland third. El Paso's in the mix there, though. So that's interesting to see. That's a team that's kind of on the up and up, getting a lot of buzz right now, right? So, yeah, something to watch there. I think those are good shouts. Pony, why don't you tell us about your Western Conference rankings?
I'd say mine are. I have mine kick out how many points I think they're going to have at the end of the year. West, I have Phoenix in first, Fresno and Reno as basically tie for second, but I give it to Fresno based on 10th of a point. And then fourth place is also a tie between Sacramento, Portland, and El Paso, but Sacramento wins that on tiebreaks again. So it's a really tight West. I think Fresno, Reno, Sacramento, El Paso, New Mexico, Portland, any of those teams could finish second, and I won't be surprised.
And Pony, you say by a certain week you've kind of got it locked down, right? As far as the playoff look, right?
Yeah. I think it's usually by late July. I usually get, for the last 2 years I've been doing this, I've begun 15 of 16 teams who qualify correctly. I think my biggest spot miss has been like 3 or 4 points in seeds. So I like this method, but it's still a little bit early for me to love it.
Ryan,
it's really impacted by the really good and bad teams. That's the problem.
got it. Ryan, yeah, I remember. I always love your episode, and I only catch about half or understand like half of what you're talking about sometimes. But when you guys sit down and talk about how you do your ELO rankings, I think it's really cool. I enjoy it a lot. So, Ryan, has yours been that accurate? I kind of wanted to ask you that.
Yeah, what I help with the ELO ratings is I have the database for basically every team who's played in USL since 2011, and then I just kind of bulk, and I then just kind of compare where teams are currently this season to teams who have qualified for the playoffs, hosted playoff games, became champions in previous seasons, and then I use that as a measuring stick to compare where those teams are or fit within that kind of range or that scope to say it's like, okay, if you've reached this certain rating, and you're more likely to be a playoff team, or if you've reached this certain rating, everyone above it has been a playoff team, and you are very likely to be one at that point. And so I mainly just use that as more of a ballpark and measuring stick to compare historical data to what we have today.
Very interesting. Ben, is this your first year doing this, or is it? Have you done it before?
No, this is my first year doing it.
Cool.
And we'll see if I keep doing it for USL next year with Nashville moving up to MLS.
Oh, I get it. Okay, fine. Yeah. All right, just stop doing the USL. That's totally fine. We don't mind. You know.
No, I could keep doing them for you guys. We'll see.
I'm just gonna guilt you into it, man. Come on. Sweet. Pony, what are we doing Friday? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, Friday, I mean, assuming I have the day scheduled off of work, but that could always change at a moment's notice. But if we do, Ryan and I are going to run through all of our rankings from top to bottom, how we formulate it, what the standings are, who we think is going to be a playoff team, not only our top 4, but who's getting that number 10 seed and who's going to miss out by just a little bit. And that'll be Friday a lot earlier than we do this. I think we're talking about around noon Eastern time.
I think the hairs on the back of Harry's neck just went up.
It's that soccer Spidey sense. He's feeling it. He's feeling the goodness coming. That'll be a good nerd show for all you soccer nerds and stat nerds, and for me to try to understand. I'm excited to hear that one. Yeah, it's going to be fun. So everyone log in Friday. You guys, we're going to set it up live, I think is the plan. So if you want to follow along live, maybe skip out on a little bit of work, take an early lunch, do your thing. That's it, guys. That's it for our power rankings as far as their top 4, just to give you a taste of what they're going to do more in depth on Friday. But before we go, we have something really sad to talk about. You guys have probably noticed that Big Kev McCamish has not been here for a while. And that dude, between having so many kids and having a job, especially the job, has really kicked into gear. He got a new job, and it's taken a lot of time. He's going to drop out of the show, and I'm starting to put words in his mouth. So what he did is he wrote a letter for us, and I'm going to read it here. But this is about Kev, who you guys have heard for I think over a season now, hopefully on this show, is going to be leaving. So here's his letter for everyone listening to the USL show. He says, I'd like to say a few things. First off, this will be my last show, my last anything, really. I need to be finally done with all of it. I need to close this chapter in my life. I've been privileged to have the access I had. Lucky to be able to experience all that I've been able to do for so many years. It began with, quite frankly, a, quote, I wonder, and with support from my wife while on a trip to visit family. He said, I wonder if I can be of help to a blog I read. That turned into writing for Stumptown Footy, quickly to an editor spot overseeing quite a lot of the content for Timbers 2, Thorns, and providing backup on a lot of Timbers content. Things changed there, and I decided to retire from the writing aspect, quickly followed by getting super busy in my own life. Thus, I had to discontinue my Play the Kids podcast and focus only on the USL show. But now he must leave the USL show again. It goes on. There's a whole lot more, but it talks about he's risen quickly in his new job. He's being very successful. He's now the department head. He has employees of his own that he must manage and employees he needs to develop, and so he needs to focus on that. So both of my children are growing up, both showing interest in the beautiful game. I'm blessed to be able to play with my own kids and just enjoy soccer as a fan again. Seeing the game through their eyes is a treasure. Well said there, buddy. In closing, he says, it's a bit sad to close up this chapter of my life, but there's so much to be thankful for, even more to be excited about in the future. I'm grateful for all the support given to me, all the friends I've made. I couldn't imagine being able to remember everyone I need to thank. So just do me a favor, be good to others, love unconditionally, and as Evan likes to put it, don't be a dick. Thank you, everyone, from the bottom of my heart for all the fish. We love Kev. Kev, if you listen to this, man, thanks so much for all you've done. When we were starting the show, I just wanted to say that, we were like, who do we add? Who's going to join us? Who's good? We need to add at least one more person. And I think Kev was like the fifth person, where I think I was second to last to be asked. And Evan was like, I think I want to add Kevin. Should I ask Kevin or should I look for someone else? I was like, dude, I love Kev. I follow Play the Kids podcast, and I think he has really great things to say. We'd be really lucky to get him. I didn't even know how well established he was in Stumptown Footy. But, we all think Kev's awesome, and obviously he's moving on and making the right choice for his family and for work. And I know for a fact we'll have him back one of these days. So, Kev, if you're listening to this, yeah, I tried to talk you out of it today, but, you're welcome back anytime. That's it, though, for the show. Any other thoughts on Kev? Anyone wants to say anything before we do our outro?
I guess kind of looking at that a little bit, I think Portland reminds me of a lot of what Swope Park has been in the West the last few years right now.
Oh, yeah, like with the rankings?
Yeah,
That's
just the way they always look like that team who's good, not top of the table, around that 4th, 5th seed, and then they get hot, they're going to make a deep playoff run.
That's a great point. I think you have something there. Yeah, because no one saw Swope doing as well as they did the last 2 years, really. They just kind of made a good run. So I'm with you there, Pony. Let's do outro. If you have a closing thought, please feel free to say it. Lefty, let's start with you. Tell us where people can find you and your podcast and maybe a closing thought.
Okay. Well, I am very privileged to work with two amazing folks, Edward Stewart and Amy G, as I call her, because I cannot pronounce her last name right. But we do the Foxtrot podcast. It has been a total pleasure and a joy to do each and every week now, and I want to thank everyone for listening. As for final thought, it's been an amazing couple of weeks seeing our U.S. women's team just kick butt up and down the world, so to speak. And today's match against England was a nail biter, a surprising nail biter. And the team has been called villains. They have been called un-American, but they have in each and every game shown a resilience that is so soundly American that is inspiring every time they hit the pitch. So I cannot wait for Sunday for the final, and I'm going to be cheering on our U.S. women's.
I think that was well said, Lefty. Eloquent, even. So thank you for saying so. I think that was really great. And I do want to say that, I listen to podcasts for different reasons, and there's a group of BGN podcasts that I really enjoy listening to because the banter is so good. The rhythm is really good, and the people have fun together. And you three on that podcast, it was a joy to listen to you guys. And we're going to have a lot more of that coming on, exactly that kind of thing. Ben, I like listening to your podcast because you guys do my style of nerding out. I really engage with Nashville and Indy for that kind of reason. So, Ben, closing thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at Soccer Speedway, or we put out a bunch of written content, which you can find at speedwaysoccer.com. And then I'm just at Ben Wright. Closing thought, I'm going to kind of jump on what Chris said. It's just been a blast watching the U.S. women. It's been the first time I've been able to watch a Women's World Cup with my daughter, which has been awesome. And yeah, it's been fun watching a U.S. team that's fun to watch for a change. And I just hope the U.S. Soccer Federation realizes the value of that at some point.
Yep. Ryan, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter at ILM_Ryan. And I guess it's just been incredible to watch the U.S. women's team. I keep getting updates from my dad whenever he listens to the games at work and stuff. And I'm just hoping that we can do well on Sunday and against Sweden or the Netherlands, whoever we face. I know we can win.
Pony?
So yeah, I got that game spoiled today. I was trying to record it and watch it later and get interested. I was in the break room at work talking with some other friends. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm recording the game, so I'm trying to see what happens. And then someone else says, oh yeah, it's 1-0 in the 10th minute. Do I think they just heard me wrong? It was
Jerks.
that was ugly. But you can find me on Twitter at USL_Pony.
Yep. And again, check out that show. We're going to be streaming live on Friday, and we'll probably post it Saturday morning for your listening pleasure. I'm Phil Grooms, 2 L's, 2 O's. My final thought is, guys, I know, Ben kind of alluded that people aren't happy with the way the men are playing right now, but gosh, I'm still glad that Berhalter's there, and I'm rooting for him. I think he's doing it right and trying to do it right, but we're not sure yet, right? But I'm rooting for the guy. I like how he's been going about his business in a lot of ways, maybe not all the ways, but I'm hoping he's got a long-term plan for the future, like he says, and I hope it pans out for him. So that's my final thought. Again, this is the USL Show. We're brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network. We are sponsored by Roughneck Scarves. It's the official scarf supplier of MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get your custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Golden Goal Press. It's the best choice for you to get custom shirts, hats, mugs, and other items just for yourself or your organization. Check out their amazing products at a fraction of the price of other places at goldengoalpress.com. I'm rocking my BGM special Playing for Pride. I got it in white. You can get it in like 10 different colors, but I'm happy with mine. I think Carson Merck might have copied me. He got white too, but I did throw it out there as a good option. So that's my bad. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. It's the USL Show. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to Ryan and Pony. Log in on Friday. We'll talk to you soon, all.